been looking forward to this conversation for quite a while. We know that sometimes we text, we email, we receive texts, we receive emails, and sometimes that communication just isn't going through. Was that message misinterpreted? How do you deal with that lack of communication or discommunication at work, with leadership, with coworkers, with clients? This communication crisis is wreaking havoc on stress and anxiety levels in relationships and friendships. Here to talk about it is Sam George, the author of I'll Get Back to You, The Discommunication Crisis, Why Unreturned Messages Drive Us Crazy and What to Do About It. Sam, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I had a technological glitch there, which is common these days. The issue about unreturned calls really, unreturned messages and emails is a symptom of a broader problem that causes all of our problems, whether it's too many emails or confusing emails or misunderstandings. They're all rooted in the very same principle. And that is, for the first time in all civilization, we converse without an instant feedback loop. And that has thrown everything off. We have, for millennia, used an instant feedback loop. And that's really the issue. Everybody thinks it's the technology. It's the instant feedback loop. How would you define communication? Well, communication is best when you have an efficient and clear and predictable feedback loop. But by design, we've fallen into a communication system which has a fractured feedback loop that's unreliable, vague, unclear, causes loss of messages. You don't have an unreturned message in a direct contact. Somebody doesn't walk outside of the coffee house or just hang up the phone on you. It's rare. So you can see that the issue really here of digital communication is not the technology, but rather the complete abolishment of the instant feedback loop, which we've used for ages, millennia. So in some ways, this is the biggest shift, historically, one of the greatest shifts in communication, probably right up there with the printing press.
Amazing. And Sam, I should say that you are a master of discerning trends before they're recognized as trends and communicating those ideas in several books and have certainly spoken frequently on the topics of communication in general. And actually, in 1995, you were hired to put together the strategy to legalize marijuana. So certainly, you are a man that is involved in a lot of communication. And I imagine that there's probably a story behind how you discovered some of these trends that you've been getting after, of course, in this book. So, Sam, what was that experience for you? When did you first discover this communication and decided to, again, try to share your resources and advice for the public at large?
I actually came to it while I was working on another project. I was thinking about writing a book about fear, and this came across my screen. This is something that creates fearfulness and anxiety for no reason. So the discommunication came after the fact. As I was writing the book, I figured this out. Being a political strategist at a master level, you are forced to look for trends and see things in a macro way. And once I saw this, think about it, how many technological experts are out there? But this is, one of the few competing theories of what the issue is here. The issue is not the technology. The issue isn't how it drives us crazy. The issue isn't all the problems. The issue is simply the feedback loop. So I was able to structurally identify that. And it is discommunication, because communication is communication only when there is, depending on the efficiency and the clarity of the feedback loop. So in that sense, all communication in the digital age is discommunication.
Absolutely. And again, I'm chatting with Sam George, the author of I'll Get Back to You, The Discommunication Crisis, Why Unreturned Messages Drive Us Crazy and What to Do About It. Sam, I agree with you 100%. And I think that we have, again, a dizzying number of these, call it, communication channels. And I know that our listeners, as we have this conversation, they're getting ready for the week ahead. They're getting ready and putting things in place. So, Sam, I want to pick your brain on some of the things that's the practical advice that you recommend for an entrepreneur that might be tuning into this conversation. What can they do to better this for the benefit of their personal or professional relationships in the week and month ahead?
Well, I think you have to look at the importance of whether or not the first thing that you have to ask yourself, because many of these people, like myself, are working out of home, or even if they have a place of business, they do a lot of work out of home. So you have to ask yourself first whether or not whether or not you should schedule some calls, as well as as in terms of your upcoming calendar. Because one of the reasons there's so many emails is because they go back and forth, for clarifications, and then they get on trees. So the first thing I would do at the beginning of the month is say, let me take a look at this. Which of one of these would be better? I understand that people don't want to do a lot of calls, but which one of these would be better in terms of doing a direct phone call? So that was the first step. Now, in terms of your calendar, I think it's important to set times that you open your emails if you're in business, to say, okay, I'm going to only open my emails from 11 a.m. to 1, or then from 3 to 5, because then you're not distracted. You can focus on your work. I think a schedule is very important. Also, that's what's important is that you you make sure the biggest problem, right, is that your email's not getting open. What happens today, we're barraged by so many emails, and I've done research to prove this. It's nothing against you. I mean, essentially, what happens is that we see a predictable subject line, we flag it, we know the person, we plan to get back, and sometimes we forget. Or even if we don't forget, it's delayed for a long time. And what this book shows is that has a psychological impact on the people waiting. They just don't wait. They start they start going through catastrophizing and all these negative feelings of paranoid and delusion. So, you don't want to do that. That is, in terms of your actual communications, I do have some advice. So the first thing is to get them to open the emails. Well, anybody who has done I've done digital advertising and fundraising knows the whole battle is the subject line. There are books and Googles, et cetera, et cetera. And the worst thing you can do is put a predictable subject line, even in business. Put a predictable like meeting or things like that. What you want to do is use a subject line that will create curiosity, that will create a sense of urgency, and many other things to get them to open it on the spot. If the person opens your email on the spot, there's a high probability they'll return the email and return it promptly on the spot. But that's the whole challenge. And therefore, you avoid getting filed. Even if someone looks at your message, when they go back, they'll remember it. It won't get just simply filed. They'll have more than just a name, meeting, and Sam. They'll have actually content in their long-term memory, which means they're more likely to get back to you. So that's the most important thing, is to experiment with subject lines that are non-traditional. Well, the worst thing you can do is to put a standard subject line.
Sam, you've shared some really, really good advice, and we're coming up on a hard break over here. So again, the book is called, I'll Get Back to the Discommunication Crisis, Why Unreturned Messages Drive Us Crazy and What to Do About It. We've been chatting with Sam George, trend spotter, communication expert, who's shared some really, really great advice. Sam, where can people purchase a copy of the book and get a hold of you?
They can purchase the book on www.discommunication, DYSCOMMUINICATION, www.discommunication.com.
Well, Sam, I appreciate your expertise, and I can't wait to have you back on because the discommunication crisis is real and is becoming more apparent than ever. So, Sam, thank you so much for
Sean.
joining us. Absolutely.
Okay.
We're going to squeeze in a quick break, and when we return, we'll be talking all about continued conversation on small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. We'll be right back.
Thank you.